Welcome to the session. We have on stage with us experts from healthcare and health insurance, two very heavily regulated industries. So we'll be hearing from them about how they're adapting regarding recent regulatory changes, how they're preparing for the future of regulatory changes. We'll be learning about how to collect data, how to leverage data, how to maintain data to serve your customers in a customer-centric fashion without losing sight of privacy and compliance. We'll get right in. So first question. So obviously there have been a lot of regulatory changes in recent years around healthcare and health insurance. How have you managed to serve your customers despite these changes and the challenges that come with them? We'll start with Mike.
Thank you, Nirmal. Really two things. The first being the collection of zero-party and first-party data. Right? Critical for us to have that information. We've taken steps to optimize our forms, to put tactics on our website that basically progressively profile and collect those breadcrumbs on data or on consumers, so we can build that 360-degree view of the consumer. The second one, a little more complicated. So being in compliance with HIPAA. And if you don't know what HIPAA is, HIPAA, not double P, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Basically what it is, it's a series of laws that serve as the national standard when it comes to protecting your PHI or protected health information. So basically your medical records. And this is enforced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, and Office of Civil Rights, OCR, sorry for the alphabet soup. And yeah, so they hold hospitals, doctors, health insurance companies accountable to where they store that data, who they share it with. And at the end of 2022, they released updated guidelines that basically said that any of those entities on your website, you need to have certain agreements in place with those different application vendors, or it's got to go. And the risk is million-dollar penalties and even prison time. So it forced us to do an audit of our website, look at which ones we had BAs with and which ones we don't. And probably to no surprise, there are large companies that don't sign BAs, like Google. So it forced us to remove Google Analytics from our site. Fortunately, back in 2021, we had the foresight to put a HIPAA-compliant web analytics tracking platform on our site, so we were ready. But definitely forced us to make some adjustments. And really, the impact to our patients is negligible. There's nothing that they're seeing on the front end that's impacting that. It's all on the back end, and it's all in that effort to make sure that we're continuing to move forward, collecting that information to personalize that content while upholding that responsibility to protect their information.
So alphabet soup, first-party data, zero-party data.
Yes.
Got it. All right. Well, it sounds like you have to be in the space you're in. You have to be careful who you partner with and the data strategies you have to have in place. Don't rely on third-party data alone. Be careful. Build that relationship with the customer directly. Have them consent to things and then collect data from them, which you can then use to engage them directly.
Exactly.
Sounds great. Right. Dan.
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's been a big challenge for us. Luckily, we haven't had to backtrack too much on existing use cases we had in place. But with the CPRA from California, Washington's My Health, My Data Act, and like Mike was describing, the OCR guidance on HIPAA and online tracking technologies, there's just been so much for our privacy and legal teams to sift through when it comes to just understanding what we have going on the website today and getting their arms around any new use cases that we're proposing. So it's not just the standard legal interpretation that they would do, but also the technical interpretations. So in a lot of ways, they need to understand what these technologies do, which means we need to really understand what they do so we can explain it to them and together come to an understanding of what we need to do and to comply with the regulation. So it's been slow going.
So it sounds like compliance and governance is almost as important as technology itself.
Absolutely.
Aaron, so slightly different spin on that for you. How are your customers reacting to these regulatory changes in your experience?
Yeah, we have the good fortune of working with some very innovative healthcare providers and med tech clients. And in some instances, they were so innovative that they didn't just respond to the OCR guidance in 2022. In at least one instance, they anticipated it. So the first HIPAA-compliant data solution that we implemented was 3 years prior to the OCR guidance. So with that client, We didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to do anything when the OCR guidance came out. We could continue working with them on enhancements to their CDP, augmentation of first-party data strategy. We have other clients that are similar to that. Since the OCR guidance, which expanded HIPAA coverage from patients to non-patients, anyone visiting a site, and problematically rendered virtually all third-party trackers likely HIPAA violations, we engaged with lots of other prospective clients and clients that weren't so forward-looking. Some of them caught completely flat-footed, and their response, and more importantly, their clients' team's response, was to rip out all of their third-party tracking. And either they ceased marketing or they continued to market and flew blind. In some instances, we're engaged with new clients that acted hastily, implemented a solution that they knew at the time, technically solved for HIPAA compliance, but was not ultimately the solution that they intended long term. It didn't meet their strategic needs. It just solved for that one very specific tactical need in that moment. And so now we're talking with them about the right solution, the right strategic solution that doesn't just solve that technical issue, doesn't just keep them out of court, but enables them to be effective as an organization. I would say, in the middle of those two ends of the continuum, we just find a lot of thoughtfulness and careful consideration, organizations moving with deliberation to understand and augment first-party data stores and to activate first-party data stores, and very careful consideration of the right solution for their long-term needs.
Right. All right, question number 2. So with all of the emphasis on regulations and compliance and all of that, it sounds very difficult. Why bother? Why do you think, despite all of this, giving customers a customer-centric experience is important? What do you think that is? I'll start with you, Mike.
I think it's critical to its success. There was a McKinsey study from a couple years back that said that 78% of consumers are more willing to purchase from you if you can personalize their experience. And that 63% of that group said that if they knew exchanging their information would help that company better anticipate, meet their needs, and personalize, then yeah, they're going to share their information. So, our goal is to collect as much information on those individuals because healthcare is complicated. I mean, I think everybody in this room knows that, and people aren't always willing to give that information up front. So being able to leverage that and personalize their experience is critical for how Advent Health is making it a more personalized experience and meeting their needs for the most part.
So it sounds like without building that trust, it would be harder to improve and save lives anyway. So it's almost an imperative for you to figure out the challenge of compliance and serve your customers better regardless.
It is. And balance is especially important as well. I mean, most of us in the healthcare industry, we understand what we can put in an email versus what we have to put in a secure portal message. The majority of the patients that we see trend older, and they tend to use shared computers. I know most of us here are always on our devices, and we're mobile first, design-wise, and always mobile everything first. But the prospect of someone being on a shared device and putting information that was meant for somebody else opens us up to risk. So I would say that for my friends in the non-regulated space, make friends with your legal team. I know, lawyers, right? But them, risk, and others can help you chart the right path, especially with all of these different privacy laws coming up across different states, being able to get ahead of it. Think of the day where you have an individual that is requesting that you delete all of their information. Do you have a process for that? Have you put all of that together, all of the different operative units that have that information, so you're not on the wrong end of it? Fortunately, we have a great chief legal officer. He is a very unique individual. He's given himself so many different names, one of which is Warden of the Metaverse, but he definitely makes it easier for us in navigating that.
It's awesome. So you mentioned something interesting, that balance between privacy and personalization. That's interesting. So Dan, so why do you think that customer centricity is important, despite compliance and all the challenges? And how do you achieve that balance between privacy and personalization when it comes to engaging your audience?
Yeah, great question. So the study that Mike just mentioned, the McKinsey, and we've seen this in our own experience too, that consumers are really willing to share information with you if you have something of value to give them back, whether that's a personalized recommendation or some sort of a unique perspective on the problem that they're trying to solve. And so, we serve, in the business unit that I support, we are serving a Medicare-age consumer. And the environment for someone researching that type of insurance, on Google is intense. The competition for their attention is intense. And so if we can, well, and I should say also, at worst, misleading. And so if we can produce a best-in-class digital experience that's helpful to them, and combine that with the legacy of our brand, we believe we can compete on more than just price, and that's really important. And then on the existing customer side, we may have been able to get away with being a little behind the curve in terms of the digital customer experience that we provide in the past. But with each year, as each year of Medicare enrollees enroll in Medicare, there are more and more digitally savvy, and so the bar for personalized, uncomplicated experiences continues to rise.
Got it.
So it's really important. It is a balance, but it's worth the struggle.
It's a worthy challenge and
Yeah.
worthy struggle. Sounds
Yeah.
like fantastic. Aaron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is self-evident. Just the stories that we've heard today, the value, the power of personalization. If you hearken back, if you return to the early days of marketing where you truly and deeply understood your customer, you sought to serve that customer in an authentic and resonant way, and through that relationship, you earned their business now and into the future. Personalization allows us to do that in a digital age, what previously was done on a one-to-one basis most effectively, what was done in traditional marketing most effectively. So it's really, I think, a return to a higher quality and more valuable and more meaningful form of marketing.
Fantastic, fantastic. So hopefully this is sort of a light-hearted question. So what are some of the things that you two, wish you could be doing in your industry, despite all the regulations? I know you can't, but what do you wish you could do? And what are some of those things that your colleagues in less regulated industries can and should be doing? We'll start with Mike. Or maybe, actually, Dan, let's switch it up a little. Dan.
Yeah, so this one's an easy one for me, and that's using first-party data outside our own walls. Like Mike mentioned, HIPAA and the GLBA both say if you don't have a business associate agreement in place with a third-party vendor like Google, like Meta, sending them first-party data, hashed or not, is off limits. And so, if you wanted to create an audience of your own customers in Facebook, for example, or even exclude your own customers from a campaign, like let's say you had thousands and thousands of your own customers clicking your paid search ads every week, driving up your campaign expense, and you wanted to stop that from happening, it's just not something we can do. So for me, that's an easy one. Not being able to do that means we focus our first-party data energy, inward on our own digital experience on our website, and the emails we send for cross-sells and promotions like that.
Makes sense. I mean, we're not selling sneakers. You're not in your world.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can retarget somebody with the fact that they are going through cancer treatment. You just can't place a Facebook ad and ask them, how's your cancer treatment going? You can't do that.
Right.
So there's a lot of sensitivity. But would you say then your colleagues in other industries do have the luxury? If they're selling a cool pair of sneakers, they should be leveraging insights and re-engaging them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool, awesome. Mike.
Definitely what Dan said all day long. Retargeting, for sure. Raise your hand if you have a Meta pixel on your website. It must be fun. Yeah, we can't do that because we'll get sued. So yeah, definitely that. I mean, we said this was going to be fun. I know all of us have opened up things from hospitals and healthcare providers. This is not a bill, and then you see the amount, and the heart palpitations start. Promotions. Being able to offer something like 10% off of a knee surgery. That is not something that we can do in our industry. So, going back to retargeting and last chance messages through SMS or through the app, those kind of promotions, it's just something that doesn't exist in our world. So, being able to do something like that would be a lot of fun.
Right. So price transparency, a good deal, and re-engagement. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, 100%.
Awesome. Good to know. So Aaron, again, slightly different spin on that to continue on that topic. What constraints are heavily regulated industries like healthcare, health insurance? what are they facing today, right? So, and what are they coming to other less regulated industries? So what should other industries prepare themselves for?
Sure. So I feel it's self-evident that what's happening in healthcare is going to happen in all industries. The privacy regulations that healthcare, med tech clients deal with, all industries will deal with over the next few years. And so coming to grips with that, taking control of your own destiny now, learning to collect and activate first-party data is essential. More specifically, you will be dealing with the deprecation of third-party cookies by Google. We could all place bets on when that's going to happen. It changes day by day as Google changes its whims, but it's going to happen. We may have to reckon with Google's privacy sandbox and the implications of trying to act in that sort of marketplace. Healthcare and med tech clients have needed to operate for the last 18 months or so in an environment where they can't rely on third-party cookies, third-party tracking, third-party data. It's harder at the beginning to act in that way. These are new muscles, there's new infrastructure, new systems that you need, but the quality of the marketing, the quality of the performance, and the outcomes are much better, more valuable, and higher quality once you make that initial investment. And so my thesis, my takeaway is take control of your own destiny today, act as though you're in that privacy-constrained environment today, begin to test and experiment in that way, become really good at it before you have to be really good at it.
So it's not the time to wait. And is it safe to say that privacy and compliance requirements are getting stricter, not just in healthcare, but overall? It sounds like it.
They're both getting stricter. They're also getting more complex. There are a dozen states that have their own versions of privacy regulations, and nearly all of the remaining states have something in the offing at some point in the legislative process. And so 50 different constituencies with their own flavor of privacy regulations, national regulations that will apply by industry, international regulations that are even more stringent than anything we have domestically, and you likely have to deal with a global audience. So you have to come to grips with that complexity and increased restriction and learn to operate in a context in which you control your own data and you understand how to activate that data without relying on a third-party entity and behaving in a manner that is fully cognizant of all of the constraints that you may face legally.
Sounds like a kaleidoscope of laws and regulations coming your way soon. Awesome. This is for all three of you. What strategies should colleagues in heavily regulated industries like healthcare, health insurance, what strategies should they keep in mind as they embark on their compliance journey and the customer-centric, personalized customer engagement journey? We'll start with Mike.
Well, not to harp on it, but definitely if you haven't already, prioritize the collection of zero and first-party data. The more that you can build around your internal customer base as third-party cookies go away and those third-party data marketplaces become untenable, the more power to you and your ability to use that information. And looking at some of the slides today and some of the schemas that are up there, I have serious FOMO. I feel like I need to go back and hit some of the reset button and think about how all of these things are being put together. So definitely making sure that you are tying into the larger data lake, that you have all of those different consumer touch points put together. So it's never too late to start. And one of the things that we've done, we're just at the beginning of our journey with Telium, and we've deployed server-side tagging, one for our Amplitude product for web analytics, but also for Google Ads. So because we took Google Analytics off, immediately our cost per acquisition skyrocketed. So we're trying to get back to lowering that back down, but it also opens the doors for us for those other companies that don't sign BAAs like Meta, like Bing, being able to optimize our campaigns against that and lower the cost per acquisition.
Makes sense. Again, it also sounds like you shouldn't wait for them to get on board with you.
No.
Your strategy, whether it's tech or governance or whatever, should give you that flexibility so you are in the driver's seat, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense. Dan.
So I'd say three things. First of all, privacy really needs to be a feature, not a requirement, not just a requirement. And so my advice would be to really embrace privacy. And if you do it right, I think your consumer, maybe not everyone, but some of your customers are going to notice that and appreciate what you've done there. And so then next, I think you need to make sure that you have people that understand basic data privacy principles on your team, on your project. And if you don't have someone like that, then find someone. If you can't find anybody, then it needs to be you, to really make sure that your system embraces privacy. Second is get your data in order. You've heard, I think, every single presenter so far say something about data layer, so I'll say it. You need to have your data layer sorted out. You need to know what your external sources you're wanting to bring in are, the keys that you're going to use to join them into your main profiles, the structures that they need to be in, or the structures that they are in today, and you need to convert them into so that they're going to work. And then last, I'll say, start leveraging conversion APIs as soon as possible if you aren't already. Right away you'll get benefit from that. Your signal will improve just by running them alongside client-side tagging if you're still doing client-side tagging. You'll have it all figured out when privacy taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, you got to stop with the client-side tagging as well. And then finally, you'll really start to understand how these different platforms tick, like Meta, like Google, which data source or which data elements they really need to create a good match rate, which ones you don't actually need to send to have a good match rate. So I think, all three of those, and you'll be in decent shape.
So looks like even though they work for you, not everybody's equipped to handle sensitive patient data. So to train people well, you need the ability to unify the data. Wherever you're collecting the data, it should all be in one 360-degree view, if you will, and actionable, and you need to be prepared to act on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron.
So I think that last comment that you made is really important. I would emphatically agree with everything that's been said. If I were to double down on one thing, it is to think in a nuanced fashion about compliance and keep in mind that the act of collection in most instances is not problematic. The act of sharing is problematic. So when you collect, ensure that you have a compliant data repository, a data warehouse, a data lake, where you can maintain that data, you can enhance that data, and then importantly, that you've created a context with an analytical overlay that enables marketers, analysts, strategists to easily understand that data and to surface insights in a manner that makes the insights portable but doesn't require the data to be portable. That's a big shift that we needed to make in our own digital advertising services to healthcare clients. You can't send any data to Meta, can't send any data to Google, so you need an analyst to be really smart and to be able very quickly dive into a HIPAA-compliant data warehouse, understand audience targeting, understand performance metrics, and then transport that insight to the platform with no data connection.
Fascinating. So now we are, I guess, wading into the realm of technology. So you mentioned data lake and, again, all of these channels communicating with each other and the right people, again, being in the driver's seat to take action on this data. That's pretty powerful at this point. So let's pivot to and talk about technology. What role does technology play in all of this? How do you optimize or prepare your tech ecosystem in your journey to, again, give them that customer-centric experience, your customers that experience, in a privacy-centric and compliant manner? So how does tech work in all of this? Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think every company is going to have different data, different systems they're trying to tie together, different platforms. But from a privacy standpoint, you need some connective tissue that ties it all together. So you may have your consent management platform. We use OneTrust, for example. You likely have a DSAR, a data subject access request form somewhere on your site. You may be collecting other preferences, on your website or on your app. You need something that flows that, all the way up and all the way down your stack. And so your client-side tags obviously need to respect that if you're still doing that. Your server-side tags, your conversions API, they all need to get that signal. And then I think if you do that piece, in the right way, you're also creating an auditable record that you have honored that request from the consumer, and you can use that to demonstrate to your compliance and your legal teams, hey, yes, we are able to do that, and we're doing it. Look, you can see this is how it works, and these are the records that are created when we go and delete these things.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Sounds like a Telium CDP problem to me.
Yeah, and yeah, great cue. Like the Telium platform has really helped us do that and demonstrate to our legal and privacy teams that, hey, we're capable, we can do this.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Mike.
So historically, our team has been focused more on the acquisition side of it for marketing. So 3 critical components: tag management, web analytics, and CRM. We're in the process of implementing Telium, where we'll have consent management, which is something that we were gearing up in preparation for the Florida Digital Bill of Rights. Web analytics, if you aren't familiar with Amplitude, it's very similar to GA4. It's more event-based focused segmentation. So we implemented that a few years ago and just went through the instrumentation of that through Telium. And then finally, we're a Salesforce house for CRM. So sales, service, health, and marketing cloud. My team primarily focus on that. So really looking at the data capture stream, being able to know the unidentified individual when they come to the site, what they're clicking on, capturing that information, and then ultimately scoring those leads for our call center to work that. So those are really the critical components that we've focused on historically. Our work has begun to shift more toward patient communications. We went through migration from Cerner to Epic a couple of years ago. So now we're really starting to bridge the non-patient and the patient ecosystem when it comes to communicating. And it's inevitable that those 2 tech stacks merge and integrate with each other and speak to each other. So excited to see where that goes. But that's primarily been our focus over the past couple of years.
Makes sense. So it sounds like you're using a sort of a best-of-breed tech approach when it comes to your ecosystem, rather than tethering yourself to one vendor and all of these solutions there.
Correct.
Is that something that people should be? Would you agree that that's something everybody should be considering?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it allows for different problem solving, right? I mean, again, we're in a highly regulated industry, so there are some applications or some vendors that aren't going to sign those agreements, and they aren't part of the process for us. So yeah, it's definitely diversification helps, and you want to try to avoid as much as possible not investing in those products that do the same thing. Right. But there is benefit to that at the same time, because you might be able to fine-tune that, get that data point from this system, even though you could get it from this one, make sure that they talk to each other, you get the best of both worlds.
Makes sense. And Aaron, take us out on a high note.
Sure. Ooh, that's a lot of pressure. Okay. I would say, as you consider the technology investment that you would make for the future, think strategically and not tactically. I mentioned that earlier. Think about the long term, what you want to be able to accomplish in 2 years and 5 years, and invest for that 5-year time horizon. Ensure that what you implement is flexible and can accommodate all of these things that you can't do today but want to get to in the future. Ensure that your investment, that the technology that you choose, integrates with other critical parts of your infrastructure. Don't bring in a solution that is orphaned or creates a silo or distorts your internal processes in ways that are unhealthy. Think in a nuanced fashion, particularly with regard to HIPAA compliance, but again, I would assert that this is sort of coming for all of us. Be careful to separate the moment of collection and control for data collection from the moment of sharing with third parties. Treating those things differently, ensuring that the platform that you choose and implement can do those things discreetly, can maintain full fidelity for you within your own internal systems, and give you a context in which you can augment and enhance that data and become smarter, while ensuring that you share the bare minimum with platforms that should only get the bare minimum. And we're all thinking about Meta at this point. Share the bare minimum with them. And I would say, just overall, take control of your own destiny now. Don't wait for the regulatory environment to change around you, which is what happened for a lot of healthcare systems. Begin to get good at this now. Set aside campaigns, set aside infrastructure, make initial investments that enable you to pursue and perfect this approach to data collection and data management, insights, and marketing.
Well said, well said. I think we have time for some Q&A from the audience. Anybody has a question, please raise your hand, and a mic runner will come to you, hopefully. Yes?
Quick question. You say there's a lot of regulatory changes that have happened and then ones that are future going to happen. Well, many organizations are probably feeling a little overwhelmed by regulatory changes that are going to be happening, what mindset do you need as an organization or need to adapt as an organization to have to adjust to these future regulations?
So, Mike, since you're very friendly with legal, I'm going to ask you this question.
I would say guarded. It is still shaping up. Yes, regulations are in place, but it's still in litigation. So I would say if you're feeling overwhelmed, the first place to start is start with an audit of your website, for sure. Understand what applications you have on there, what kind of agreements you have. And then, to Aaron's point, thinking strategically, understanding what the overall vision is in terms of what you're going to do with your data and how you're going to cultivate that experience for your consumer. So basically mapping that back to those different applications and saying, this point of data has a job. What job does it do? So defining all of that and then working across IT teams, legal and risk, really getting an understanding of a comfort level of what data you can share with whom and through what means.
Awesome. That was good.
And I would add maybe that, really, become friends with your privacy team. They're just trying to figure this stuff out too. And so, you might see the meeting on your calendar and think, oh, crap, I'm in trouble. But just talk to them, understand the regulations together, like I was saying earlier. And I think, they're also trying to enable, you to do business too. They're not the enemy, right? And so, become friends with your privacy team.
Can I offer a comment on the mindset?
Please.
So something maybe heretical or controversial. I would be eager about shifting to a privacy-first approach. Our experience is that, again, although it's harder, when you begin to work in a more highly regulated environment, when you begin to focus on first-party data, and you constrain yourself from not using what felt easy, third-party tracking, third-party platforms, the quality of the performance and the quality of the outcomes that you can drive is actually much higher. It's harder to get there, but the value is much greater than when you were doing it in an easy way. And so I think if you can bring a sense of anticipation and eagerness to this, even though it's harder, and you can test a little bit now and prove to yourself and your organization that this investment is not just necessary, it's valuable, that does a lot to bring people along with you and to create the conditions in your organization that are required for this to be successful.
Fantastic. I think we're almost at time. Thank you, Dan, Mike, and Aaron, for a great session.
Thank you.